Councillors, please remember to switch off or turn your electronic devices to silent. And welcome everybody, including those councillors who are at home and those viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. Thank you for your understanding today. Before we get started this evening, I'd like to advise that a clean of the council chamber and civic facilities took place earlier today, and we have updated our COVID-19 safety plans. Masks for everybody in attendance in the chamber are mandatory, except you can remove them when you're speaking. The meeting will be run a bit differently tonight, as some councillors are zooming in from home with my approval, and some are here in the chamber. So I'll call out those who are at home, and as Councillor Boothman and Councillor Migdale, the rest of the councillors are in the chamber. And within the chamber, we also have the CEO, Stuart Jardine, the directors, some managers. I also have to note that it has been approved in writing that the remote attendance of those councillors are able to zoom in from home. There are a couple of things we'll just go through as it is a little bit different tonight for elected members. So microphones that have been muted unless the member is speaking. Members are not required to stand when addressing the meeting this evening. We'll ask you to remain seated. Members to state their name before speaking. The meeting may be paused if a connection is lost or there are technical difficulties. Members are to be put in a virtual locker room if they're declaring a conflict of interest. So those on Zoom, if there is a conflict of interest, you'll be in a virtual locker room. 6, member to indicate to the presiding member their intention to leave if leaving the meeting, whether for disclosure of interest or otherwise. Members to indicate intention to speak or raise a point of order by raising your hand. Movers and seconders are as to be determined by myself, and voting is to be a show of hands tonight, so not using electronic voting. The Mayor, which is myself, is to clearly state the votes of every elected member so that no vote is secret. We'll now move on with the meeting. Deputy Mayor Bianca Sandri, could you please read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name.
Amen. Councillor Caddy, could you please read out the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect to elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Please note that without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. Members of the public should note that no action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. We'll now move on to item 1, which is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 29th of June 2021 open at 7:03 p.m. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the following motion to suspend standing orders? 1, that clause 5.7 of the City of Stirling Meeting Procedures Local Law 2009 be suspended to allow public question time procedure to be determined by myself. And 2, that clause 7.1 and 7.4 of the City of Stirling Meeting Procedures Local Law 2009 be suspended to allow members not be required to occupy their own seats or to stand when speaking. Move Councillor Sandri, second to Councillor Hatton. Show of hands, please. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 2, apologies, I have nil. Item 3, approved leave of absence. Councillor Karen Caddy has granted a leave of absence for the period 29th of July 2021 to 5th of August 2021 inclusive. Item 4, disclosure of interest from the Planning and Development Committee of 15th of June 2021. Councillor David Lagan declared an impartial interest in item 12.1 DS1 as he is a member of the Tamala Park Regional Council who contracts Satterley Property Group for Tamala Park Regional Council sales. Councillor Bianca Sandri declared an impartial interest in item 12.1 DS1 as Satterley Property is the development manager of Tamala Park Regional Council, of which she is a member. Councillor David Lagan declared an impartial interest in item 12.1 DS2 as the landowner is known to him. Councillor Bianca Sandri declared an impartial interest in item 12.1 DS2 as the landowner is known to her. From the Committee and Resource Committee of 22nd of June, I have nil. Councillors, are there any other declarations? Councillor Caddy?
Yeah, I will also declare an impartial interest in 12.1 DS1 for the similar reasons that Satterley Property Group are involved in the Tamala Park Regional Council.
Thank you. That takes us to item 5, which is petitions.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I also need to declare.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay, we've just lost your sound. Yep, so Councillor Migdale is also declaring an interest in the same item in 12.1 DS1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And 12.2.
Sorry, you're just cutting in and out, so if you can speak clearly into your mic.
12.1 DS1 and 12.1 DS2.
Thank you.
The same reason.
Noted.
Thank you.
Item 5, petitions. We have nil. Councillors, are there any unverified petitions this evening? No indication. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. All questions from the previous council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. Item 7, public question time. We'll now move on to public question time. Any questions that were submitted online prior to 5 p.m. today will be included within the minutes. We have looked through them. There aren't lots of questions tonight. Those questions that don't pertain to an item on the agenda this evening will appear in the minutes of this meeting in full, and a written response will be provided. I will, however, read some out. They've specifically been requested they're read out, or they relate to an item. So I think it's only fair that if they relate to an item on the agenda this evening that we make them known. So the first one is from Daniel Martinovich from West Leederville. Question 1, is council aware that and this is relating to 12.1 DS1. Is council aware that a subdivision approval for the 32 lots covered by the amended LDP has been granted by the West Australian Planning Commission, which allows the lots to be titled and sold? Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Martinovich, for the question. The amendments to the local development plan to provide an additional 31 lots is consistent with the subdivision application, which was conditionally approved by the West Australian Planning Commission on the 25th of March 2019.
Thank you. Question 2, is council aware that the existing road network and public open space areas are under the control and management of the City of Stirling? Mr. Littleton I've got here, is that right? Or Mr. Rodich?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Broadcast Osborne Reserve is owned by the State of WA, and Cottonwood Bushland Reserve is split into several portions, with part of this land owned by the State of WA and part of this land owned by the City of Stirling. The City of Stirling manages this land by authority vested in them by the Department of Lands in regards to the portions owned by the State of WA. And yes, we are aware that the existing road network is under the control and management of the City of Stirling.
Again, question 3, is council aware that the purpose of the amended LDP is to establish development controls over private land and that the LDP does not apply to the public realm? Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, the City is aware. The provision of infrastructure and utilities owned on City-owned land is not within the scope of the local development plan.
Thank you. Moving on, Jonathan Cohen from Perth. Question 1, the officer recommendation, and this is 12.1 DS2, the officer recommendation to initiate the amendment as submitted was changed by the Planning and Development Committee following deputations by myself in support and former councillor Paul Collins, who was opposed. Will council be giving the local community the opportunity to be consulted on the proposed amendment as submitted and to provide feedback before council decides whether it should make any changes to the amendment? Obviously, it's on the agenda this evening. I'll get Mr. Rodich to provide a quick comment.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Cohen, for the question. The Planning and Development Regulations 2015 provides a consistent process for advertising scheme amendments. The process involves advertising the scheme amendment as resolved by the local government. The community will have an opportunity to provide comment on the amendment as resolved by council when it is advertised.
Thank you. These questions have been specifically asked they can be read out from Mr. Simon Wheeler from Scarborough. Question 1. At the last council meeting, Councillor Felicity Farrelly raised a notice of motion that has since absconded, evaporated, expired, or otherwise fled this mortal coil. The proposed, and sorry Mr. Wheeler, I probably don't give it the flair you would have, but the proposed motion was that the City obtains legal advice on any legal implications of approving the Karrinyup West development application contrary to the requirements of the relevant planning instruments, and if there are any, requests that the City's lawyers to make deputation on behalf of the elected council at the next DAP meeting. The motion was supported by a significant number of Karrinyup and surround residents who were disappointed this motion could not be debated by the elected representatives. Can you explain, Mr. Mayor, why this motion was ruled out of order? I ruled it out of order in line with our meeting procedure rules and the advice I received. I'll get Mr. Blanchard to provide those.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's not appropriate for the city to obtain legal advice where there are no identified legal issues and to expend ratepayers' money in this way. That is potentially a breach of the city's model litigant obligations.
Question 2, re item 12.1A1. Mayor Irwin, you made many eminently sensible comments on the Design and Review panel. I might leave that one there. At the recent committee meeting, the core of which related to the fact that the DRP is often working contrary to the city's local planning schemes and policies and does not reflect the needs of either the city nor the community. If the council was to make comments contrary to the best interests of the city, they would find themselves in breach of the Code of Conduct. That a DRP can do exactly that is unconscionable, and that ratepayers are paying for such is a travesty. My question is for council, not the administration, and is will council defer this item until the real concerns expressed by myself, Mayor Irwin, and other councillors are fully explored, perhaps via a workshop as hinted by Councillor Boothman, given some interesting options were put forward at the meeting, which were met with nodding of heads but ultimately ignored. And I can confirm, Mr Wheeler, that item is on the agenda this evening, and council will obviously take on board your comments and make a decision. Question 3, re item 13.5. Mayor Irwin, I did write to councillors reiterating my concerns put forward in my recent deputation in regard to the changes to the delegated authority register. Planning matters are quasi-judicial matters that can adversely affect other parties, and I hope that the elected council will reconsider the changes made in 2020 to the register, which passed all responsibility for decisions that the report itself accepts produces sub-optimal built form outcomes to be determined under delegated authority. The existence of a call-in system is not relevant nor the point. The planning department will be better serviced by advice from a committee with a better understanding of the community they represent in any development applications that require variations that are judged to have an adverse effect on the amenity of others. Not really a question, but I hope the council will take this into consideration this evening. Thank you for that, Mr Wheeler, and that item is on the agenda this evening, and council will take those questions, comments into consideration. We have questions also asked to be read out specifically from Mr Paul Collins from Dianella. Question 1. Please list each City of Stirling event or gathering in 2020-21 at which a Welcome to Country performance address was performed and the cost borne by the City. For Welcome to Country performers, speakers at each such event, we will take that on notice and we'll certainly provide you a response with that. Question 2, what makes the councillors of the City of Stirling so special that they should be paid for travel from home to a council or committee meeting and back again, noting councillors now receive more than $30,000 per annum and the public and staff are not paid to attend such meetings? Whilst payments might have been appropriate when the work of a council was voluntary or done for a small nominal sum, it does not meet community expectations today. Mr Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While there is no doubt that the City of Stirling councillors are special, it's not because they receive travel reimbursements. The City, along with every other local government in Western Australia, is required to reimburse travel expenses to councillors under the Local Government Act.
Well done. Mr Blanchard's got a bit sparky in lockdown. And question 3. Payment for travel to and from a council or committee meeting is currently paid to councillors in arrears upon proof of eligibility. Why is the council or the city proposing an agenda item to use ratepayers' money and give special treatment to councils by paying councillors annually in advance for such travel, noting nearly all councillors fail to attend every council or committee meeting and Zoom meetings are becoming common? Well, that item is on the agenda this evening and council will make a deliberation, but I do have to call out those last comments and say they're not true, and our councillors attend pretty well all council meetings and committee meetings, and Zoom meetings are very uncommon still. And that is all I have for public question time. Applications for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any applications this evening? Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the council minutes of the 8th of June 2021? Move Councillor Migdale, seconded Councillor Perkoff. And just a show of hands, councillors. Yes? No, I've got a confirmation from the mover in a minute, so you can move an amendment.
I'll move an amendment, which is in
Take your mask off for me, councillor.
Sorry, what was that?
Take the mask off.
Oh, sorry.
Can't hear. Thanks.
Move the amendment that council suspends clause 4.5 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law to enable a recording of a notice of motion ruled out of order from the last minutes. that the City of Stirling minutes of the council meeting held 8th of June 2021 be amended so that item 15 includes a new clause 15.4 as follows. Notice of motion, Councillor Felicity Farrelly, legal advice. Councillor Felicity Farrelly submitted the following notice of motion at the council meeting held 8th of June 2021, that being the notice of motion recommendation that the City obtains legal advice on any legal implications of approving the Karrinyup West development application contrary to the requirements of the relevant planning instruments, and if there are any, requests the City lawyers to make a deputation on behalf of the elected council at the next DAP meeting.
That's right, so the intent's clear. So all we're seeking there, councillors, Councillor Farrelly's asking if the minutes will reflect that she put a motion forward and it was ruled out of order. Is there a second?
That is correct,
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded, Councillor Spagnolo. Is anyone opposed, or are we happy to just vote on this? So we're just voting on the amendment. If you're happy for that to go into the minutes to show that there was a motion put that was ruled out of order. A show of hands if you support that, please. So that is in favour. We have Councillor Spagnolo, Thornton, Sargent, Caddy. I'm assuming Councillor Farrelly, you're...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, that's all right. It's changed now. It's unanimous. Thank you. So that the amendment is voted. So we'll now go back to the substantive. So we're just voting on confirmation of the minutes with the amendment that it reflects that there was a motion put and ruled out of order. All those in favour, please. And that is everyone except Councillor Ree. Sorry? Oh, you're not in favour of the minutes. Sorry. Did I miss something? Did you want to object and talk? No. Okay. Just not in favour of the minutes. Okay. I've got to highlight, councillors, it's very unusual to vote against the minutes if you haven't got a reason to do it, because they are the formal record of what happened at the meeting. So, but that's done. Well, it's very unusual. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. Let's start with Councillor Karen Caddy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to present you with this certificate of appreciation that was conferred on the City of Stirling and presented to myself, Councillors Perkov and Hatton, by the Rotary Club of Karrinyup at their changeover dinner last Thursday night. Now, the Rotary Foundation supports the efforts of the Rotary International to achieve world understanding and peace through international humanitarian, educational and cultural exchange programs. The Rotary Club of Karrinyup contributes to the Rotary Foundation from its fundraising activities, and for each $1,000 they contribute, they earn credits which can be used to honour an individual or an organisation that demonstrates a shared purpose with the objectives and mission of Rotary Foundation or Rotary International. And the Rotary Club of Karrinyup have chosen to use foundation recognition points to honour the City of Stirling with this prestigious certificate of appreciation. And the President, in a letter to yourself, Mr Mayor, said that the City of Stirling has provided significant social impact, particularly during the past year when the decision was made to forego late fees and charges for rate payers during COVID-19. The City of Stirling's community-based services and noteworthy support to residents in the local community reinforce the City's commitment to their objectives which align with the mission of Rotary. The City of Stirling has also played a very important collaborative role with our club, most particularly over the last 10 years. This certificate of appreciation acknowledges the important role that the City of Stirling plays in our local community.
Thank you. And I'll now ask Councillor Lagan. You have the City of Stirling Climate Council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased to announce that the City has recently joined the City's Power Partnership, which is facilitated by the Climate Council. Council committed to join the City's Power Partnership in late 2020. Now that the Sustainability Energy Action Plan Corporate 2030 has been endorsed, the City submitted a request to join the City's Power Partnership, which represents more than 140 local government areas and over 500 cities and towns in Australia. As part of the membership and alignment with our Sustainability Energy Action Plan, the City has pledged the following: to increase the level of renewable energy generation for City operations and to participate in a power purchase agreement for renewable energy, adopt best practice energy efficient measures, support the uptake of hybrid and electric vehicles, and support the community to tackle climate change.
Thank you. And Councillor Ree, you have the Mobile Muster Award.
Yep, sorry.
Just your mask, Councillor.
They missed you to...
Just your mask, please, Councillor.
Sorry.
Thanks.
They missed you, Mr Mayor, to present you with the Top Recycling Award 2021 for the City of Stirling for Mobile Muster for the recycler in Western Australia. That's one. And the other one is, Mr Mayor, is the Bins for Blokes. To give to you the Bins for Blokes, which is an organisation set up for incontinence, etc., for men to allow disposal of products within our toilet facilities, just for you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know what the message there is. Let's move on. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. Councillors, will now move on to the Planning and Development Committee items. Any alternative motions received by governments by midday today have been included with your running sheets. Councillors, do you wish to pull any of the Planning and Development Committee items out? Councillor Caddy.
12.1A1, please.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
12.1 DS1, please.
Councillor Ferrante.
12.1 DS2, please.
Councillor Farrelly.
12.2.
Oh, we're not up to that yet. We're just on.
Not up that? Oh, well, I'll
Well,
just go with 12.1A1 as well. Just a question.
It's already done.
Yep. All right.
Anyone else? No? In that case, normally the procedure for this, we would go to the chair of the committees. Being on Zoom, it'll just probably be a bit more functional tonight if we try to just go to the person who's pulled it out and with the slightly amended alt recs. So if we're all okay with that, I'll go first of all to 12.1A1 and I'll go to you, Councillor Caddy, for a motion.
Yeah, thank you. Can I please move the alternative rec that's printed, in our papers? Now, this is to endorse the reviewed terms of reference that the Development Services Manager circulated to councillors yesterday, and plus to just make a minor change to the design principles scoring system, to change the scoring from being supported pending further attention and not supported to being design principles satisfied, needing further attention or not satisfied. The reason for the change is that councillors of the opinion that reference to support or not to support in the DRP document can be potentially be misleading and used basically in development application.
Thank you. And Councillor Prouty seconding that. Is there anyone opposed? You can ask a question. We have Councillor Sundry opposed. So we'll come back to you for a question in a minute. So we'll go to Councillor Caddy.
I'll reserve the right.
Thank you. And Councillor Proud as a seconder. Councillor Sandry, you're opposed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just a little bit concerned with B, because the actual terminology in Design WA with acceptable outcomes is satisfied and not satisfied. It's actually not support or not supported. So by using the terminology satisfied and not satisfied actually implies the exact same thing as supported and not supported. And by reference of doing satisfied and not satisfied, you're deviating from the state's template for design review panels, which I understand is currently being reviewed. So I would think that it's best to keep us aligned until that review is undertaken and we actually provide recommendations through that process. I just don't believe that the intention that Councillor Caddy is seeking is going to be satisfied through this amendment.
Let's get Mr Rodich to provide some comment and then we can work out where to go from there.
Thanks, Councillor Sandry, for the question. I guess the State Design Review Guide is just a guide. It's up for each local government design review panel to adopt that template if they wish. The suggestion put forward here by Councillor Caddy is reasonable, and for the reasons Councillor Caddy has suggested, that it may I guess change how a recommendation from the design review panel is received from both an applicant and the community. The State Design Review Panel template is a guide and it can be changed.
Councillor Sundry.
Just through the Mayor, so under Design WA, when you're assessing acceptable outcomes, is the terminology now satisfied and not satisfied, and that's what's replaced supported and not supported? I'm just mindful that we're deviating from a template that is currently being reviewed by the state. We're going to change this and then no doubt have to change it again in 6 to 12 months when the review's been undertaken. When why not just keep it as it is, do the proper lobbying through that advertising process, and the terminology to me actually is exactly the same intent. I don't see why we need to do it.
Yeah, would you like to say?
I'll just put them separately, if that's okay.
Sure. Well,
Oh, I can't? Okay, well then I'll just foreshadow the, no, it wasn't the original, it's the alternative recommendation.
well, it's the only recommendation we have in front of us, so it's.
I'll foreshadow the recommendation put forward by Ms Shears in our white paper.
Okay. Is there anyone else? I think Councillor Farrell, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was actually in regard to 9.5, so it doesn't have to be in regard to this particular point of the paper. And that's where panel discussion, 10 minutes, it's, if we put it in context, page 35. Welcome and introduction, they're talking about proponents, panel questions, and then panel discussion. And crossed out should be reference to the city's planning framework. My concern is that, though, that how does it relate to the local planning scheme, as we want to have some reference about the context, as you, I know, spoke really quite vehemently about at the planning committee meeting, and I totally agree with it, is that the context of the suburb, the locality. So I just wondered if I could ask the Director of Planning if he could tell me where that is included. Thanks.
Mr Roddick?
Thanks, Carol. Councillor Farrelly, for the question. The reason why the officers recommended that line be removed from the terms of reference is because it's the officer's responsibility to carry out an assessment against the planning framework. The design review panel's responsibility is to comment on the design of the development in line with the 10 design principles, not carry out a planning assessment. So we wanted to make that quite clear, that it's not the role of the design review panel to carry out the planning assessment.
You happy with that? Is anyone else who, Councillor Reid?
Yeah, look, I'm concerned at 14. You know, we're looking at costs and, you know, a couple of questions from ratepayers regarding how much councillors get paid, etc., and what they do. And I know in a lot of big councils and councils smaller than us
I don't
that get
think
paid
I've
a lot
heard
more
that,
money.
Councillor, but let's go on to this topic.
A question. So I'm concerned with the amount of money the chairperson gets under 14, and even more so the fact that, and I take on board the Mr Roddick's comment that in comparison with JDAP, etc., that it probably even out. So I look forward to that report in 6 months. However, it says in here the chairperson has preparation, time spent advising, editing report. Does the chairperson actually write anything? I didn't think they did. I thought that was all done by staff.
Mr Roddick?
Thanks, Councillor, for the question. Yes, they do. The chair of the design review panel reviews the notes from the meeting and prepares that commentary on behalf of the panel. So that, yes, they do put work in before and after the meeting to make sure that those minutes are correct.
Councillor?
Thank you. And when he goes to SAT, do we pay him extra?
Mr Roddick?
Through the chair, if there was a point where we needed the chair of the design review panel to attend a SAT mediation, the city would have to look at reimbursing or paying for costs for the chairperson to attend. We haven't needed to do that, and I can't see a need in the future to do that. But if it was to come about, we'd consider that at that time.
Councillor Reid?
Mr Mayor, I am concerned about the costing for this design review panel, which I've said all the way along. When I look at the Environment Advisory Group, when I look at the different groups that we've got, the City of Stirling, very intelligent, qualified people who get one meal a year if they're lucky and a cup of tea. I'm just concerned about the costing for this and the implication it is on our ratepayers going forward. But I look forward to the report in 6 months' time evaluating these costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandra, you had a question.
Sorry, just a quick comment. Look, I'm probably going to lose.
Quick question.
Just for the record, if that's okay, because I didn't think about my foreshadowed motion.
It needs to be a question, councillor. It's against
Okay.
meeting procedural law.
Oh, it's fine. I'll just support.
Yeah, you can frame it as a question. I'm happy to. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Caddy, then to close.
Yeah, look, just briefly. The reason that I'm wanting to change the wording on this is because, and there's been further changes made to the text. I think one of the issues that we've got is that developers have been standing up at JDAPs and using the words in the design review panel where it says that there's been support and saying, well, this shows that the design review panel supports the application, which is clearly not the case. And I think the changes that have been made to the wording clarifies that it's not the role of the design review panel to support or not support. It's what our officers do. The problem with, so that's why I really wanted to change the wording here as well, to make it really clear that what the design review panel is assessing is whether a design principle has been satisfied, not whether or not they support. And even though it technically means the same thing, I think it's very different when a developer is standing up saying a design principle has been satisfied versus the DRP has supported. And I just think that's a really different turn of phrase, and that's why I was really wanting to change it. I understand we may end up changing it again in 6 months' time when there's further reviews to the state government legislation, but I think it's something we can do right now that just really helps to clarify the role of the DRP and stop its findings from being misused, particularly in front of JDAPs and SATs. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that does close debate. I will now put that. A show of hands if you support it, please. And thank you. And if you're opposed, that's everyone for it except myself. No, that was the only thing I supported. Anyway. Item 12.1 DS1, Lot 9000, House Number 7, Osborne Road, Dinella, amended local development plan. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I please move the original recommendation, which is shown on page 90 of our agenda, and just for elected members' information, there was a movement to defer to August, but I think I'm happy to debate why I don't feel that's necessary.
And Councillor Sandri has seconded that. Is there anyone opposed?
Clarified, Councillor Lagan said deferred to August.
From the planning it was deferred to August, I think it was.
So page...
Councillor Lagan and Councillor Sandri have...
So what are we voting on? We're voting on the...
No, that it be approved.
Oh, the recommendation, not the recommendation from committee.
Yes.
Is that right?
So
'Cause
the
he
original
didn't
officer's
actually say-
recommendation that it be approved. Is there anyone opposed to that? Councillor Ree, go to you, Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, there was some concerns that were raised at the meeting, and it's my understanding that the city can capture the traffic issues that were raised at the committee meeting, the built form issues and the public open space issues, and we can do that at or before individual application stage when the rest of the development is progressing. There is no intent to delay or slow any portion of the media precinct and specifically the Seven Hills Estate progress. Any specific area or LPS issues that may arise arise into the future can be worked at the built form application level and phase. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Sandra and I have had discussions with members of the public who presented to committee, and we're confident that their concerns around local traffic issues using the estate as a fast thoroughfare, and I went out to the estate late last week and it was fairly evident that that is in fact happening. Local area traffic issues, available POS was also raised, and also the question about the bushland forever, which surrounds a fair amount of the Seven Hills Estate, and possible future estate play equipment within the 10%, which is actually 15% POS that was given in this provision to create a stronger community as all lots are developed. So I think if we progress this as it's stated on page 90, Part A and Part B, we can capture the issues that were local issues as we progress. There were some issues about dividing walls and height, and they can be addressed. There were some, as the presenters came to committee and stated, there were some concerns about how the estate is beginning to develop. With council and elected members' assistance, I'm sure we can assist in that creation of the community they're looking for, given that it is a fairly small lot estate, but we can actually create a good environment there.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As most of the councillors are aware, at committee I had some questions, and I would like to thank the officers for answering those in the course of the week about the bushfire, etc. One thing I'll note about this particular item is that it is only a local development plan, which is required as part of a subdivision approval. So the structure plan's been approved, the subdivision's been approved. This is the last step. So it's actually too late for us to change anything fundamental to do with this stage. However, as Councillor Lagan has pointed out, both of us have been in discussion with the officers, spoken to the deputy from last week, or the week before, apologies, and I believe Mr Littleton's team will be working on the traffic items for us, and Mr Rodich's team is aware of the nexus issue regarding Donella Drive and Gay Street moving forward for the media precinct. So I'm comfortable, given that this is just an LDP dealing with just some localised planning requirements for the dwellings themselves, for it to be supported and to go through tonight, and just mindful of progressing those other matters through future stages of the structure plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Thank you. Is it normal for councillors to go and speak to one side of the proponents but not all sides? I just find that a bit odd.
For clarification, if I may, Mr Mayor,
Yes,
I spoke
you
with
may.
the deputy from Planning Committee who was a resident in the estate.
Councillor Ree.
Thank you. I thought it was settling. I just wondered
Councillor
how...
Ree, do you want to withdraw that?
Oh, sorry, I withdraw.
Thank
Just the way that was said. That's why I thought. That's why I asked.
Thanks.
I just wondered how sustainable this development is, and I'm concerned about both the lighting and the traffic, and I don't think that's been addressed. I'm more concerned about the Bush Forever sites that keep disappearing. I think the greening corridor is important, and for those remember when the kangaroos were taken away and all the issues that were involved.
Councillor, this
originally,
item, that ship has sailed. This item isn't about that.
I'm saying in the area
okay.
that people may recall the issues that were raised then. But when I look on page 107, 60% of people totally objected and 40% of people really didn't support it, openly support or object. I mean, one can concur from that. You haven't got people openly supporting the project, and that concerns me as well. I think, especially when we look at COVID times and people walking around, people are not probably fully aware of what the implications of this is. And I couldn't possibly support this at all. And I would foreshadow the original committee recommendation, if I may, which said that it be referred to the Planning Development Committee meeting to be held on the 10th of August, because I don't believe that a lot of the issues that has been raised have been addressed. And that concerns me. And while people may sit there and say, yes, we need more housing and infill and etc., I don't think we should be doing it compromising the environment. And we need to put that in perspective. We're not addressing it as we should. We look at Churchlands, we're looking at Mirrabooka, look at Scarborough. There's a whole lot of developments going on, but they are not looking at the impact that it actually has on a neighbourhood. And when they sit there and say, yeah, it's okay, we'll have this development, but then, you know, that development causes more people, more traffic, more issues, pedestrian safety. You know, we only have to look at the childcare centre that was going to be in Cedric Street. And they, as a community, got together mainly because of the traffic, etc. When more people realise what's going on, especially with regard to this bush, and especially for those that do recall the poor kangaroos, I think people will come out and say this is wrong. I think we have to be very mindful going forward that these developments are changing the neighbourhood. They're changing the feel of the neighbourhood, and the mental health of people is being compromised constantly when we have concrete versus bush. So I will not be supporting this motion as it is, and as I said, I foreshadow the officer's recommendation because I do believe it needs a lot more work.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you foreshadow the committee recommendation. Yeah. Is anyone else who'd like to speak? Councillor Spagnolo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I spoke at this on this at the committee meeting, and there were some concerns. There was traffic. There was the built form. In fact, all of the things that Councillor Lagan alluded to in his speech this evening. The thing that concerns me is that we deliberately held this over to give an opportunity to the people out there who have expressed these concerns. The ward councillors, as I understand, have spoken to some people out there, and that's great. But there might be other people out there who want to know what's going on, who want to know how these matters are going to be addressed. And I'm just wondering whether there is urgency to actually pass the motion that's being proposed, or whether we should actually seek to go with Councillor Reid's foreshadowed motion. I think that, if people have raised these concerns, we can't just sort of just look over them and just cross our fingers and hope for the best. We need to take them seriously, and we need to see how we can address these. I mean, it looks like we've got some answers on how we can do this, but I think to just suddenly say, well, look, let's do it now rather than wait until the 10th of August, and we're only looking at another month, really. So I would certainly, commend the motion that's being proposed, that's foreshadowed, that we in fact look at going to August 10, find out what's going on out there, let the people know, and then I think we can proceed from there.
Sure. I'll just go to you, Mr. Rodich. Would you like to provide any comment on discussions between yourself or officers?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess council need to consider this is a local development plan which only deals with the built form outcomes for this subdivision. The subdivision is approved. We can't change the lot layout, the provision of open space, lighting, that's been dealt with. So all this planning tool is satisfying a condition of subdivision approval, which is to obtain a local development plan for the development of these lots. And that's needed because these lots are, smaller than typical size lots and need special provisions to allow for a suitable built form. Now, Council in 2015 approved the local development plan for stage 1. Now, this just builds upon that. So the subdivision's been approved. A lot of the comments received, or all the comments received during advertising, raised matters which were outside the LDP. And this is what the officer's comments in the report talk about. They may be valid, but valid at a separate time, and the time has already gone past where those comments would have been valid. This is just about the local development plan, and the report's very clear that those comments received can't be addressed through this planning instrument.
Thank you for explaining that, Mr. Rodich. So I guess what's being said is, regardless, whichever way we vote tonight, it's not going to affect the LDP. So on that basis, I guess it's prudent to go with the motion.
Councillor Caddy.
Oh, look, I guess what I was about to say has probably been made redundant by what the directors just said. But I think, when we talk, if we're holding things over for a good reason, that's fine. I think what we've heard is that the objections are not covered by the LDP, so there is no point holding it over. And there is a penalty to holding things over. Land, a lot of people are looking to buy land right now. So delays, affect people in terms of waiting to be able to buy their land. There are a lot of people probably looking to get this land and build on this site. So, I think in the current climate, council should be looking to expedite things when they can and not just be holding things over where there's no, good purpose for it. If there was, be more than happy to, but I'm happy to support the ward councillors in this one tonight.
Councillor Farrelly.
Really thank you, Mr. Mayor, but in regard to this LDP, is the comment and the reason I was concerned at the planning committee, and I do think there's been a bit of a lack of direction here, because if what I'm hearing tonight is that there is very little change that could occur, therefore maybe the recommendation shouldn't have been made, because it is probably putting something forward to the public, the community, that they have got to August the 10th But the question I do have to the director are things like orientation, so that, you know, breezeways, the height of the walls between the buildings, those sort of things, they are still under consideration with this, or they've already also been decided?
Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Councillor Farrelly, for the question. Those provisions would apply if approved by Council tonight. So those considerations have been considered. But those types of comments about built form outcomes and design of lots wasn't raised during the submissions by anyone from the public.
Councillor, happy with that?
Yes, thank you. I actually do not, I've noticed that, but I can't see any other point, and I will support that. But I think we've directed incorrectly in this regard from Planning Subcommittee.
Okay, any other indication? If not, I'll go to you, Councillor Lagan, to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I thank elected members for the debate. Look, in response to some of the comments, the reality about this estate is that a number of people have rushed to purchase the land in this estate, and they voted with their feet. It's a high quality estate. If the story was that people weren't going to purchase the land, we'd see vacant lots. We don't. In fact, in my visit last week, I was quite surprised at how fast the development is growing. It's looking good and it's growing fast. Look, just Mr Mayor, through your question, there was a comment made that the loss of bushland forever. Can officers indicate whether, or can officers tell me whether there has in fact been a loss of bushland or bush forever land?
Mr Rodich.
Councillor Lagan, I'd have to come back to you on that. I don't believe there was, but I'd need to confirm that. I mean, that, once again, is not a consideration through the consideration of this item.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that point clear. It's my understanding that there hasn't been loss, and in fact, in response to a question I sent last week, I've been informed that the city has been assisting the Friends of the Cottonwood Reserve and other reserves in the area, and it is high-quality bushland. I strongly suggest you go and have a look if you want to see inner-city bushland being kept. The development is well progressed, and we're not at the point of trying to turn back on the development. As I've indicated, the issues are well covered, and we can, in fact, move forward with this and keep an eye on the built form in the future. We've gained feedback from a number of people, and sufficient time was given for that feedback. Concerns at committee were in part put to the committee by a developer and sales agent who's well aware of the complexities of the LDP and the subdivision approvals, and his concerns are now somewhat late as the subdivision's well progressed. The local issues have been heard. No one's been ignored, even those people that might have had thoughts against the progress of this. They've been heard. Myself and Deputy Mayor Sandry have met with those people and talked to a number of those people, and we've spoken to officers about things that we can do moving forward for the local issues and taking care of the concerns that the community, in fact, asked us to contact them on. And it's good that Councillor is noting that we are communicating with the members of our wards. And I've sent elected members a week or so ago a number of pictures showing you the state of the estate, the quality of the estate, the fantastic Moreton Bay figs that have been kept, the high number of trees that have been put in, the fact that we have a tree nursery in the Cottonwood Bushland Reserve area where the city is developing a number of street trees for that area. This estate, as I said before, will be high quality, and issues of single built form can be dealt with at the time of application.
With that, that closes debate. Move Councillor Lagan, seconded Councillor Sandry. All those in favour? And against? And that is everyone in favour except Councillor Ree, who has voted against. That motion is carried. We'll now go on to item 12.1 DS2, Local Planning Scheme number 3, Amendment number 123, Lot 4, House number 256, Walcott Street, Menora. Expand additional use and apply an R60 density coding. Councillor Ferranti.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the committee's recommendation with one question, just a clarification question, if I may, please.
Sure. And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Farrelly. And is anyone opposed? We'll just go to the questions then. Councillor Ferranti, your question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine's simple. I just wanted to reconfirm that that this is a change of use only. It's still staying at 12.5, and there is no R60 heights applied to this location.
That is correct. Mr. Roddick, no?
Councillor Farron, no, it's not a change of use, it's a rezoning, but committee's recommendation is to not propose the residential R60 coding, so it proposes additional uses, so I think that's what you're trying to say. Yep.
I just want to confirm there's no heights that will be applied to this property in these changes.
Through the chair, not under the amendment, no.
Councillor Ree, you've got a question?
Just with regard of that, thank you very much, Councillor Ferranti. That was one of my questions. My second question is with regard to the heritage guidelines. Do we actually need to make a comment in here that part of this is consistent? No?
Mr. Roddick?
Through the chair, councillor, not as part of this rezoning proposal with additional uses. Any heritage consideration would be considered as part of a consideration of the development application, should there be one in the future, but not under the amendment.
Councillor?
Mr. Mayor, I just wondered whether or not under the amendment, because it's going to go out for advertising, which I think is good, whether or not there should be a comment so people realise it is actually in that area, but that's just to make sure people are fully aware. Just when you advertise it, maybe it just needs to be tidied up the way it's worded, that's all.
Officer will take note of that. Councillor Caddy, you got a question?
Yes, we got a white paper coming through from the officers that suggested that we make a small change. There was an alt rec that was proposed that cleaned up the wording. That's not what you've moved, councillor. Because it refers to amendment attachment 3 as opposed to that one.
Sure.
And that's why I seek
I believe the intent is
Yep.
the same.
Yes. So, councillor, are you happy that slight amendment go in? You're happy with that?
as long as the questions I've asked are considered in that, and I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure because
Yeah,
there's
it
a
was
lot.
and it was just a clarification to make sure that the attachment 3 lined. Is that right, Mr. Roddick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Farron, yeah. So attachment 3 is the proposed new amendment as modified by the committee, which basically deletes the residential R60 coding as being placed in the rezoning.
Councillor Farrelly, you're happy for that to be that? Great. So if no one's opposed, then I will put that motion. All those in favour, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So that does bring us to the balance of reports. So I will go to you, Councillor Boothman, for the balance of reports for the Planning and Development Committee meeting. If you'd like to move the balance.
Yes, move the balance of the report.
Perfect, good. As seconded, Councillor Perkoff over there. I will ask for a show of hands, please. All those who support it. That is unanimous. Thank you. Please be advised the remainder of the Planning and Development Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors will now move on to the Community and Resources Committee items. Any alternative motions received by governance by midday today have been included with your running sheets. And I'll go to you, councillors. Is there any you would like to pull out? Councillor Sandri.
Thank you. I'd like to pull out 12.2 ES1 and 12.2 CC1.
Great. Any other indications? Councillor Farrelly. Point 2 CS1. Great. Councillor Ree.
Yes, thank you. 12.2 F2, please.
Yep. Okay.
And I was going to 12.2 F3, please. More of a question.
Great. Okay. Then we will go back to the start and 12.2 ES1, annual review of cost contribution rates, development contribution plan for rights of way improvement works. Councillor Sandri.
I'm happy for someone else to move it. I just want to vote against it, please.
Oh, sure. Okay, so Councillor Caddy, you happy to move that?
Yeah, moving the committee's recommendation to council.
Thank you. And someone second, please, Councillor Proud. And I'm assuming then we'll just put that to the vote. Would you like to speak against it, Councillor Ree? Councillor Ree is opposed. Councillor Caddy?
I'll reserve.
Thank you. And who seconded for that? Councillor Proud? Happy? Councillor Ree?
Yeah, look, I think we've gone through this a couple of times, but I don't really think it's being addressed the way...
Just your mask, please, Councillor.
Sorry. I don't think it's being addressed the way some of the conversations we've had around the room. Yes, we need to sort out this rights of way, we need to do the improvement, but the comments that we've been making don't seem to get to print. And that just concerns me. So rather than go through all the bits and bobs that I think I've already raised quite a few of it before, so I'm just cautious the fact of this isn't addressing our intent.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I spoke at length and asked a number of questions at committee. I'm still not comfortable with the item and the proposed procedure for moving forward with the cost contributions. It's kind of a double-edged sword for me, because in Inglewood a number of rights of way have been upgraded to a very high quality, and the community largely are very much in support of the rights of way being upgraded. This is also a vexed issue because the rights of way, the cause for upgrading is not just a demand like the SUP demand, for instance. It's demand that's created when buildings are put in the rights of way, facing the back of the right of way, and that part of the built contribution is that the right of way be surfaced and other treatments be undertaken in the right of way. A number of the right of ways in Inglewood might only have 1, 2, 4 or 5 dwellings in that situation in a distance of 600 or 700 metres, and the whole of the right of way is then done with contributions being taken from all homeowners. Look, the report, I find the report a little bit problematic when we get the figures from RLB, that the figure there for the right of way construction on page 195 shows a 1-year jump from $452 to $703. That's a $251 jump. Now, the other costs that are shown for lighting and for retrofit installation are not greatly increased, but the estimations that are given by RLB from my reading of the report are very blue sky figures that are very high, and they leave a lot of room for the officers to look at the structure and then say, yes, we can lift the cost based on the estimates that are given by an independent valuer. Now, that's fine, but the greatest issue for me here is not that we don't provide good rights of way, it ends up that we do, but that the costs of rights of way, in my opinion, should in fact be a reduced cost. It says in the report that there is some reduction in cost, but when you have a jump of $251 in the recommended price, yes, we didn't take that $251 on, and in fact the jump is only $80 for the recommended 2021 rate. As I said, it's a concern for me because I'm not seeing economies of scale. The more we build, it should get cheaper. I've done a fair amount of research on national FAGS funding and road funding. What's interesting is the road funding that's covered in FAGS funding, or the old model in FAGS funding, does not always or does not instantly include rights of way. So the costing is something that we bear and then ratepayers bear. What I'm looking for is a reduction in cost over time, especially if we're doing more and more and more of these, and we are in a number of different wards. And in fact, we've been asked at council tonight to consider more dedication of rights of way. The rights of way might be something that we consider to be a fair cost, but they do add to our overall infrastructure cost over time because the assets, as we noted at audit committee, are listed and they have a depreciation over time. So we start with, when you compare to other municipalities in the Perth metropolitan area, we start with a right-of-way now that is somewhat unfortunately far better than many of the roads that would be 25 metres away from these rights of ways that are not being upgraded. They're being toothpaste filled with the black line marks. My concern is about what are ratepayers getting for their dollar. I think we can drive the cost down, that the cost shouldn't be recommended necessarily by the portion 6B11 of the LPS 3. I don't think that that's a great model to use for raising costs, but my reason for voting against this is not that I'm not happy with the rights of way. I think we could probably do them at a lesser design style. It's about reducing costs and getting better value for money for ratepayers.
Thank you. Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through you to officers. Just roughly, what percentage of the scheduled rights of way that were due to be upgraded last year were pushed back on the schedule?
Mr. Littleton.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Migdale, and through the chair. Last year we substantially reduced our right-of-way program delivery by we generally spend or upgrade between 8 and 10 rights of way per annum. It's a 20-year program. Last year we only upgraded, I think it was 6, and the muni funds was that we allocated to the upgrade of rights of way was approximately half of what we did the previous year. So I think it was about $2.4 million we invested in rights of way last financial year, given the COVID year.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering, of those rights of way, would it be possible to estimate how many have homes fronting them?
Mr. Littleton.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. We identify priority of the program on the number of developed properties abutting the right of way. So you know, the city has hundreds of rights of ways that it's looking to upgrade over that 20-year period. And we do that on a priority basis, and it's largely around use. It's important to recognise also that people will only pay a contribution to upgrade the right-of-way if they actually develop their property abutting it. So it is not a fee that's applied to every property that abuts it when we upgrade the right-of-way. It only applies when people actually develop and develop, a substantial improvement to their property in excess of $100,000. So it only applies to those people developing, and it's also important to remember that we only recoup a very small proportion, potentially 30% of the costs of upgrading these rights of way. So the reality is that the ratepayer bears the majority cost of upgrading rights of way. This is a contribution, and it's important to recognise we're not debating we're only debating the provision and the fee that we're applying to development tonight, not the program, the broader program for rights of way. That would be a different situation.
Councillor Migdale.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Littleton.
Councillor Presiding.
Sorry.
Sorry, she's still going.
Yeah. Residents in the Lawley ward, many of whose homes abut rights of way, are extremely happy with the upgrades we've done so far, and certainly very much looking forward to upgrades that are scheduled in the future. If anything, I receive many requests to see if they can have their rights of way upgraded sooner rather than later. In saying that, I take on board what Councillor Lagan said with regards to his considering that if there were a greater number of rights of way upgraded at a given time, that the rate should go down, not up. Unfortunately, as it stands in these challenging times, as I sit here in a Zoom council meeting, things are highly unpredictable, and it's very challenging to negotiate lower rates when the future has a question mark next to it. So, and again, I just wanted to reiterate that on page 195 of the agenda, the $250 odd differential that was that I believe Councillor Lagan mentioned, but then clarified that was an estimate, and not in fact the recommended rate for adoption for 2021. I certainly support this item, and I do hope that you all support this as it is a development contribution, as our officers have concurred. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrante.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't talk any further because Councillor McDale's preamble has just taken most of the questions and speaking that I wanted to say. Thanks, Councillor McDale. Enjoy home.
Well done. Councillor Proud.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've just got to applaud the work of the right-of-way team that rolled these out. Remembering page 195, we're looking at the recommended cost, and I'll just reiterate what the Director for Infrastructure has said. This is only when residents abutting the right-of-way actually develop to the value of $100,000 or more. So I get many, it goes beyond requests, it's actual demands to get people want their rights of way done, and they want to be able to access it, and they want to stop antisocial behaviour, and they don't want a lot of rubbish dropped in their laneway that we, the city, cannot access because we'd be trespassing because it hasn't been vested in our control. So it's a 2-year process. Once they're identified on a 2-year rolling roster to get the vesting from the state, the Crown, and then do a detailed design, and the following year it's done, the construction is done. And most people are just applauding every day when they get it. They've been used to some really rabbit traps. I'd just like to confirm through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director for Infrastructure, I am surprised that we only rolled out roughly 6 last year instead of our normal 12, but I just wanted to, my understanding is we do the rights of way in-house, and I thought we had good staffing during the COVID year last year that actually rolled out quite a few. I'm very surprised that we did basically 50%. Thank you.
Mr Littleton, can you provide some advice on that?
Look, I can confirm that that we do rights of ways in a number of different ways. We have in-house labour that complete right of ways. There are occasions where we outsource right of way construction as well, depending on the workload that our teams have. Our program last year was compressed largely through the initial program was compressed largely through the reduction in our capital program. 6 of a nominal 8 was still reasonable delivery, but we had looked to prop up and commit some additional LRCI funding to do some additional rights of way at the back end of the year, which is still being rolled out. But look, our program is a 20-year program, as I said, and look, it is within council's ability to adopt its budget, its annual budget, and we cut our cloth to suit the money that's available.
Councillor Caddy, would you like to close debate?
Yes, thank you. Look, I acknowledge the issues that the Inglewood Ward councillors have about the right-of-way construction program itself, but I don't think that relates to this item, because this item is just about the cost apportionment. And the reality is that these things do cost us a fair bit of money to put in, and it's appropriate that the people who get some benefit from that, contribute towards that, as the Director said, when they redevelop their property. Now, the last year we implemented a different regime where there's an element of smoothing. So it's not just based on last year's cost, it's based on the last 3 years' cost. And that's actually proved to be really useful this year, because we saw the cost jump up last year, and we don't want that to be jumping all over the place for our ratepayers. So the fact that we're smoothing it, I think, is a really good thing. I don't think it's valid to look at economies of scale and expect that our costs are going to go down the more rights of ways we do, because firstly, a lot of the cost is materials, and you have to purchase bitumen. And at the moment, those sorts of materials are actually quite costly. So just because we're doing more and more rights of way and we're getting better at them, you can't expect the costs to actually go down. So I think that's a little bit flawed logic. What the officers do is look at the cost of what it's really, what it is costing us to put these things in, averaging that over 3 years, and then working out what the cost apportionment schedule should be. I think that's an extremely reasonable approach to take. I'd also add that I've certainly get nothing but good feedback from the right-of-ways that have been built in our area, and the ratepayers definitely appreciate them and the quality to which they're built. So I have no problems in supporting this tonight.
Thank you. And with that, that closes debate. Move Councillor Caddy, seconded Councillor Proud. A show of hands for support, please. Thank you. And against? So against, we have Councillor Ree, Councillor Lagan and Councillor Sandri, and all other councillors are for. That is carried. Thank you. Item 12.2, CC1, development of a City of Stirling app. Councillor Sandri, you pulled this out.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendation. I just have a question. I do apologise.
Councillor Migdale has seconded. And your question?
Thank you. Just in terms of the report, it discusses that the app will be effectively like a portal. I wonder, will the app be similar to what the councillor portal is, where when you go onto it, it reverts back to a web page? Is that the intention?
Mr. Quirk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to a large degree, yes. The purpose of this app is really to capitalise upon the functionality that RMS has provided. RMS is linked back to the website through forms and links. So certainly the first stage of the app, it's intended to really just provide one location which will pull the locations, the forms from the website into your mobile device, so that you don't need to search across the web and other platforms. Certainly with the second stage, which is proposed in the report, that's where there's the opportunity to look at some more bespoke functionality that isn't already what is either developed or under development through RMS.
I just wonder, I mean, from my experience using the councillor portal, this is the only reference, oh sorry.
No, I just want to, is there anyone opposed to this? Councillor Lagan is opposed? Because I might just open up debate, because I think you're going to start debating it. So
Sorry.
Let's go to you, Councillor Sandri, continue.
So just with my experience with councillor portal, I mean, it effectively just takes you to a web page, and I don't feel like it's very interactive. It's quite clunky, and it serves a purpose for us, but I'm just mindful that if we're going to do an app, we want to do it properly to start with, because that's how you're going to get the people to download it and use it. If they download it and it's clunky and it's not responsive, then they're automatically switched off it, and to bring those users online to use the app moving forward will be really difficult. So I kind of just wanted to put it out there. If the officers could just be mindful of that, and obviously, and I asked through the Mayor if we can be taken on the journey of what the app will look like and how it will function, and maybe get our feedback through that process, it would be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Quirk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I can confirm that the app will be different from the councillor portal. So it will be pulling existing information primarily from the city's website. So I recognise that there has been a little bit of clunkiness with the councillor portal. That will not be the app. The information we pulled from the website, which is linked back through RMS, which is forms and information that is easy to access. The app will really just pull it into one convenient location. In regards to your second point, certainly yes, and I understand Councillor Ferrante may have already had a conversation with the Manager of Customer and Communications to make sure that councillors do get the opportunity to have some feedback into what's in the app, so that you can guide what customers and residents will see.
Thank you, and I would like to note that I think this was an excellent notice of motion put forward by Councillor Boothman, and I think this is an excellent idea for the city as well. Thank you.
Councillor Migdale, do you have anything?
I do, actually. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to second those sentiments. I'm extremely excited that the city sees fit to develop an app at this time. Anything that we can do to make communication and connection with residents as simple and easy as possible is well worth the effort. from whether it's viewing city events, booking on demand, waste services, looking up bin days. You know, there's a plethora of reasons that were it possible as a resident for me to open an app and simply 3 clicks and I'm there rather than picking up the phone, it's well worth it, in my humble opinion. There's other organisations that I wish would, and local to WA, that I wish would take it on board to develop an app, as I have discussed with some of you before. But in my opinion, you know, whether you're trying to book at a golf course or whatever you're trying to achieve through by way of the city, these days, most of us are able to achieve very fast and good outcomes through apps. It is now an extension of how we do business. So it is timely, it is necessary. I agree. I think that councillors should certainly be taken on the journey of the development to ensure the highest and best outcomes for residents through functionality. But 100% I back this, and I'm really excited to see it get underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm possibly going to display my flawed logic here again, but anyway, I'll give it a go. In the words of the famous movie, show me the money. So we were told at committee this is going to cost us $70,000. My concern is, I'd ask the question, when does this stop? I'm all for an app, all for social media presence, all for connectability, all for the community being able to get their information quickly and efficiently. This obviously isn't going to cover everybody within the demographics of the community. A number of old people find using this kind of technology difficult. Can I ask through you, firstly, to officers, how much has RMS to date cost the city?
Mr Quirk. Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Lagan. To date, we have spent $10.5 million on the configuration.
Thank you. So to date, we've spent $10.5 million on a management system that we're now trying to connect to for another $70,000. This is my concern. That for me, there has to be a point where we say, fine, I want to put another element into the connectability of the city, and that's fine. But what I'd like to see is show me where you're going to take that $70,000 out elsewhere. I am aware that over time, in my time as an elected member of the city, we have in fact reduced the cost of advertising in some local papers and some other forms of communication and moved more towards electronic communication. But I think we've been more than generous in the way in which we funded the technology to create a more efficient city and to allow people to be able to do the things that they want to do quickly and with ease. But an additional $70,000, happy for us to spend that, but someone needs to show me where we need to get that money back, because we've already spent, as was pointed out by the officers, over $10 million on similar or connected technology.
Thank you. Councillor Farrelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Really, it's just in regard to, and it follows on a bit to what Councillor Lagan said, that is the community connectability. I can think of a wonderful reason for it where you have the your say, you make a comment, they just zip into that app and they can talk about, you know, particularly with the normalisation of Scarborough when it happens, I'm sure everyone will want to talk about the heights. They don't have to worry about going in and trying to find it. It'll come straight to the app. That's what I would hope in terms of community connectability, beaches, you know, what's happening on the beaches, which one's working the best for the surfers, which one has no sand in it or something like that. If we're really looking at community, what are they really looking for to get through something very quickly and without going through a minefield of connections on the web page. Finally, it's interesting that Councillor Lagan talked about the non-digital media to the lack of advertising we do in that, because I think you are correct, Councillor, that we are missing that in some parts of the world, in our city, that people are feeling very disconnected because they're not seeing anything out there in the written media. Maybe that's another side of a discussion. I think we need to readdress that. We do still have a large population of people over about the age of 70 or so, or under the age of whatever, who don't like to use the digital media as much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
Thank you very much. I totally support the comments made by Councillor Lagan. I think they're very valid. The amount of money we spent on RMS is just increasing, and I don't know if I've seen really justification, and we were supposed to get that money back, and I look forward to that report to show that we have made all those savings. I'm a bit confused how this is not incorporated into the saving as RMS to start with, because I thought that was the intention. It's more confusing when you sit there and look at page 201, where it makes the comment about bookings at Hammersley Golf Course. Only 17 of the, don't know how many respondents there were, but 90 of them looked at events, but 17 wanted to book. And yet it says there that you can make it through RMS and bookings at the website. So why would you want to look at it at the app? I find that odd. On page 200, where it makes the comment about Snap, Send and Solve, is this app going to be used for undesirable people in the community to take photos of what people have got in their bin and send it in?
Mr Quirk.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the beauty of the way the app is intended to be designed is it links back to RMS and the functionality that's provided via the website. So with Snap, Send and Solve, that is a standalone app that information is sent through to the city, but then it's not linked back to the service area that actually then needs to make those works happen. So a request for maintenance is an example, rather than that bin example, whereby someone will be able to access the request for maintenance form through this app and lodge that, and that will then directly be allocated to the relevant business unit. So that's the important difference between a standalone app like Snap, Send and Solve and this proposed app, is that it will link to the city system so that someone can report a maintenance issue. It will be directly reported through the app to the service area and be responded to. Just in terms of your comment around Hammersley Golf Course, it's important to note that the app can be tailored to whatever the resident needs. So if a resident doesn't use Hammersley Golf Course, then they don't need to have that as a link through their app. The important link back to RMS is that this app will trigger cases in RMS, whether that be a booking request, a request for maintenance request, and that will directly link to the city's services. And that's the functionality that we're looking to provide the community, is information that they want tailored to them, accessible in one location, but they can then request information or a response or an action, and that will be delivered through a service through the app as well.
So, Mr Mayor, could the app be used, as I mentioned originally, for undesirable activity? So if somebody wanted to put a bin on the app that was in nobody liked, does everybody get to see that bin? It just goes straight back and no one else gets to see it?
No. I can answer that, no.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm 100% certain that is correct.
Thank you. So if this is linked with the RMS, why doesn't it come under the RMS budget then? If it's actually part of the RMS applications,
It's not part of the relationship management system. It's a separate process to develop an app that will link in with the RMS system.
But if it's saying it's going to link
Mr Quirk.
I can confirm, Mr Mayor, that this app is actually being funded through the RMS budget. Mr Mayor is correct. It is separate in terms of the project, but noting Councillor Lagan's comments and your comments, Councillor Ree, we are actually using the RMS budget, or proposing to use the RMS budget to deliver this app.
Mr Mayor, then, although it says on page 203, it's an alignment, it actually says that it will be met by the already included in the draft budget. So therefore, one's assuming that it's going to be separated in the draft budget, the way this is written. So I take it as two different things. But if it's actually supposed to be incorporated in the budget, then we should actually have a breakdown of what is in the RMS budget for the coming year, because I didn't read it anywhere in the budget.
Thank you. Do you want a response to that? Miss Hawkins?
Thank you for you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ree. With regards to the RMS budget for 21-22, as Mr Quirk has said, the 70,000 would be captured within that. What we're looking to do with regards to next year's budget is to finalise waste services, so the configuration around waste. We're also looking to fully digitise the compliance services within planning and development, so all the inspection services, so health inspection, veg inspection, etc., everything that sits within that directorate. So those are the plans. The other plan is to deal with the records management and record keeping in line with the State Records Office requirements within the digital space as well.
Mr Mayor, my final question: how many staff will not be required if a lot of this is becoming digital and we're actually encompassing it in the digital area, for want of another word? Therefore, some of the staff would be obsolete. So how many staff would we be losing for this?
None for the City of Stirling app, I can confirm that. An app won't remove staff from the City of Stirling. But the other stuff, as you said, there'll be a report coming back on the RMS. Councillor Migdale, you got a question?
Mr Mayor, I just wanted to
Ask a question.
clarify a point. And the point is around, I'm hearing the talk track around the cost of developing the app. However, through you to the officers, without the RMS storing the data and the functionality that has been built out over several years now in the RMS system, it would not be possible to provide an app with the abilities that this app will deliver for $70,000. Is that not correct?
Mr Clerk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can confirm that that is correct. It's the functionality generated through RMS which enables this approach to our app. If the city was to need to develop a bespoke app from scratch, I'll be guessing numbers, but it would literally be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Thank you. And with that, I think there's no other indication. So we'll go back to Councillor Sundry to close debate. You happy?
No further debate, thanks.
Thank you. So we'll put that item. Move Councillor Sundry, seconded Councillor Migdale. All those in favour, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 12.2 CS1, access review of beaches. Councillor Farrelly, you've pulled that one out. You've got an alt rec.
I do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very, very short and simple. Part 3 of the recommendation, I just want to make a slight change so that a further report be presented for consideration by November 2021. I won't read all of the...
so you're just putting a date in there, so it's...
to make summer of our next summer.
Yep. Councillor Caddy's happy to second that. Is there anyone opposed? No. If not, I'll put that. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 12.2 F2, Councillor Ree, you've pulled that out. Monthly statement for financial activity. Councillor Ree, you've pulled that out. Would you like to move a motion?
No. I'd like to ask a question.
Would someone like to move item 12.2 F2, please? Councillor Caddy, seconded. Councillor Farrelly. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ree. Councillor Caddy.
I reserve.
Councillor Farrelly.
Same.
Happy. Councillor Ree.
Thank you. On page 280, with regard to the insurance, it says in there that the assistant package in response to the COVID is $180,000, although I do believe our premiums went up, not down. This has been used to offset the $43.7 million stimulus package. We were supposed to get a breakdown of what or where the stimulus package went, and trying to read through it, I just can't figure out where the actual stimulus package actually went. We did put in requests. I don't think anything got to my ward, but, you know, It was supposed to be there.
You should get out and about. There's been a fantastic building built in your ward this year. Ms Hawkins, can you provide some breakdown, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ray. I mean, certainly we can give you detail of the projects. I'll send that through. But in terms of that was spread across ratepayers, $4.9 million, so 7 million for business, 2.9 for our community and our clubs and our vulnerable, and also the infrastructure package of about 28.9 million. And as the Mayor said, there were some fairly significant projects in there in terms of that capital. We've spent around 80% of that operating. It'll be higher now, but probably about 86%. So certainly, in terms of those initiatives, we're looking to have spent all that budget by the end of this year. Certainly, I can forward detail in the bags of some more projects, if that would be helpful.
Is that your only question?
So she's
Ms Hawkins?
I do business as well.
Mr Blanchard, can you just pass your microphone over? Yep.
Business news
Thanks.
as well.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks, Mr Blanchard. So, Councillor, in terms of our insurance, yes, last year our insurance premiums went up just around about 3%. We are seeing an increase of around 2.25 for this next financial year, which in terms of industry standards is quite low. It's around about 14%. And certainly, I do have a list here of all the projects that we had for the different initiatives, which I could easily read out tonight for you if that's helpful. In terms of business counselling, business mastermind, neighbourhood events, a number of the activation events that we funded, community group assistance, reduction in fees. Those are all the operating initiatives that have been nearly fully spent.
And we're happy to provide you all that stuff in writing if you'd like, Councillor. You happy with that? All right. Anyone else? If not, I will put that. All those in favour, please.
Thanks, Chair.
Yes. Councillor Meekdale is here. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Sorry, it wasn't unanimous. It was everyone voted for. Councillor Reeve voted against. My apologies. That is carried. Item 12.2 F3, corporate credit cards. Councillor Reeve, you've pulled it out. Would someone like to move 12.2 F3? Move Councillor Sandry, second to Councillor Caddy. A question or opposed? Councillor Reeve?
A clarification, which I may be opposed.
Just your mask again, please.
Sorry, my apologies. With regard to the report, it actually does say in there that you don't want to go and use the rewards program, and I can't see how the comment on page 308 would be offset only if you use the rewards program, but if you don't use the rewards program, then it's not. So therefore, I would have thought, saving money from each card. So therefore, the recommendation would have been that we were not going to use the rewards card, because it says make credit cards that earn rewards, but that we shouldn't be using the rewards.
So just a clarification on number 2. Ms Hawkins, why does it say note that there is minimal advantage and not say that we're not using the rewards program?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Really, Councillor Ray, that was to respond to the original the motion that came from the Audit Committee. In terms of that, the 525 is purely the increased fee, so there's an increase cost of using those reward cards that you referred to in the earlier page. But the recommendation is to respond to the Audit Committee motion.
So there was no intent to use the reward points in the first place, which is why it just said notes there is minimal advantage. So it's responding to a motion that came from the Audit Committee.
Look, I totally agree with that, but I'm still not convinced the way that recommendation is written, because if every reward card has an annual fee of 150, and I think we had, I can't remember now, how many reward cards do we had? We had, I don't know, 20 or something, for example. We're not going to buy coffee machines, well, I hope not, iPads, return flights to Sydney, only if you cash them in. So if we're not going to do it, why are we going to pay an annual fee for the rewards cards of $150? Why aren't we just making it succinct and say the council notes that a minimum advantage of transferring the city's credit cards reward program and therefore do not support it. Do not support the 150. Why aren't we being succinct and saying that? Because as a ratepayer...
I understand what you're saying. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And apologies, Councillor Ree. Absolutely. If that would have been a clearer recommendation, I apologise. That's certainly the intent, that the number of points that we need to accrue and what we're able to purchase, there is little advantage to the city. We will not pay that 150, so if we maintain where we are, we continue to pay the 75 per card.
Would you like to add an amendment to number 2 to say, and will not be participating in the rewards program?
Yes, please, because I think that makes it very definitive. I know the intent was there, you can
Councillor
read
Sandri,
it.
Councillor Caddy, are you happy with that amendment? If that's the intent? And that clarifies it for you, Councillor Ree? And everyone's happy? There we go. Thank you, and I will put that then. It's up there. There you go. I will put that motion with that slight amendment on there. There we go. All those in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Thank you. I'll now go to you, Councillor Mcdowell, if you'd like to move the balance of reports from Community and Resource Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd like to move the balance of reports, please.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Sargent. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Please be advised the remainder of the Community and Resource Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors, will now continue with the Direct to Council items on the agenda. We'll go to the first one, item 13.1, which is the adoption of the 2021-2022 municipal budget and relevant documents. An absolute majority is required. Deputy Mayor Sandri, you've got your motion.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation with questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Spagnolo. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, I'll take your question then, Councillor Sandri.
Thank you. Just on page 316 in the second paragraph, last sentence, it says average rates increase for residential ratepayers in 21-22 of only 0.9% over 2 years. Can I just get clarification why over 2 years?
Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Sandri. When we looked at the increase, because last year we froze and had the concession, so we actually effectively had a reduction in rates last year. So really to better understand and to enable the percentage for our ratepayers, the 0.9 is against 1920 as our base, because 2021 was an unusual year with that concession and effectively that reduction. So the 0.9 is an increase on 1920's rates.
Happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's just a little bit confusing for mainstream people reading it. I understand the reason why, but anyway, that's fine. No issue with that. And I just, Ms Hawke, through the chair, I'm trying to phrase it in a question. Is it possible for next financial year, when we go through the budgeting process, provided I still sit on this council, that when we get our budget papers, when the changes occur, we can get a track change version of those budget papers, so we can actually have full transparency over what's actually occurring.
Yep. Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Yes, thank you. And Councillor Sandri spoke to me about that today, so absolutely we'll enable those changes. So as we work through the workshops and make changes, you'll be able to see that clearly.
Thank
you. And one more very quick question.
Yes.
Thanks. The 11.7 million for Stevenson Avenue Extension Project, I thought that the city didn't have to contribute to the project.
Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, that's correct. We have the funding, it's just in terms of the carry forward for the project, but that is state and federal funding, not the cities.
Perfect, thank you.
So with that, I will put that motion. Move Councillor Sandri, seconded Councillor Spagnolo. Absolute majority required. Those in favour, please. Thank you. And against? That motion is carried, with Councillor Ree voting against the annual budget. And I would like to quickly take this opportunity to not only thank all of you, councillors. It's been a significant process this year in going through the budget process. Over 4 workshops, many hours spent. I congratulate you on your integrity and interrogation of the budget this year, and I'm sure the officers appreciated it as well. I'd also like to thank you, Ms Hawkins, and your team, and also the executive team and you, Mr CEO, for your work in leading that process. I think this year has led the way. It's been the process and the transparency that's provided through the integrated reporting that we now receive to see the real service costs of each area and the level of detail that councillors and I guess I often talk about the vulnerability of the executive team in letting us see that detail. It doesn't always happen in councils. And I think the community can be rest assured that it is a very transparent process. It is a very thorough process, and I think the net outcome for the community is one that is exceptional. But thank you to everyone for your time in getting through to this process, and hopefully the community will appreciate the budget that's passed this year. I'll now go on to item 13.2, the City of Stirling Corporate Business Plan 2021 to 2025. Councillor Caddy, you'd like to move the motion?
Yeah, I'd love to move the officer's recommendation.
Deputy Mayor Sandra, you've got your hand up to second it. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that. Show of hands. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And I will just add, because Ms Walston-Cross is here, to you and your team as well, again, with the executive team to support, the amount of work you do with such a little team to provide the detail you do, in all of this work we do around our strategy and corporate business plan is truly appreciated by the council and the community, so thank you. Yeah, and 5 council workshops. Yeah, significant process. Well done. Item 13.3, appointment of an alternative member to the 1st of July 2021 Mindari Regional Council meeting. Councillor Sargent.
Yep, very happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Rees, happy to second that.
Clarification for the 8th of July?
Yes, we'll note that's a good pick up. So note that with COVID that has been postponed to the 8th of July, so we'll just change that. Is anyone opposed? No, sure, you can ask a question.
It's just a question. Is there any, I believe Councillor Thornton is the alternative. Is there any particular reason why this came to council? And second to that, does this motion allow Councillor Thornton to be paid for the attendance of that meeting?
So it came to council because Councillor Boothman is unable to attend, and we have to appoint, even though they were on alternate already, we have to go through a council process. It's dictated that we still have to appoint the person. No, they will not be paid as a normal member. I think they get a small sitting fee to sit. No, I do believe they do get a small amount. No? No. I'll stand corrected. They get nothing. Nil, nada, nothing.
No, that's fine. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no one opposed, Councillor Thornton,
Can I ask the question? Sorry, when you...
No, I should just confirm, Councillor Thornton, you're happy to be on the as an alternate? Yes. Councillor Farrelly?
Yeah, sorry, because I did ask that question. I thought she was going to get paid the normal amount, because if she's filling
but it's
in...
it's not being debated, so we're happy to clarify afterwards, but you can ask a question.
Okay,
it's not up to us as a council. It's not our council. So I will put that item. Move Councillor Sargent, second to Councillor Ree. All those in favour, please. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 13.4, elected member travel reimbursements. An alt rec, Councillor Lagan.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have an alt rec 13.4 that reads, the council amends the elected member entitlements policy by adding the following to the end of the second paragraph of section 7.1. Fully electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles are to be reimbursed at the peak rate for each area specified in the Public Service Award 1992 Schedule F.
Thank you. So just to clarify, that's removed the part about changing the payment method, so it stays as it is.
Yep.
But it just adds in an ability to reimburse for electric vehicles.
Yep.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconder, Councillor Spagnolo. Is there anyone opposed? Yes. Yeah, I'll start with Councillor Spagnolo because he...
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to clarify what you've just said, and that is that it's not going to be paid in advance. It is actually in arrears, although
correct.
it's stated in the report.
So it will stay as the current process, which is paid in arrears once councillors...
Thank you.
Right. Councillor Proud?
I'm just wondering where one has gone. That's on page 455.
Yeah, so Councillor Lagan has moved an alternative recommendation.
Oh, which is...
So to remain the status quo, but
okay.
to add in the ability for a hybrid or fully electric vehicle to be reimbursed. So the process is still to reimburse in arrears. There's no one opposed, so Councillor Farrelly, is it just a question? Yep.
How big does the vehicle have to be?
Your bike doesn't get reimbursed. I see exactly where you're going. Councillor Brandy.
Mr Mayor, look, just in clarification of this, fully electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles are actually a different thing. It should be a comma, because hybrids are different to electrics.
Sure. Fully electric or. And we could probably do a deal with Councillor Farrelly. If you do ride to council on a Tuesday night and plug it in. All right. We're happy with that. There's no one opposed, so I will put that. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, on the bike boulevard too. Yes, Mr Littleton. 13.5, review of delegations of authority. Absolute majority required for this one. Councillor Lagan does have an alt rec for this as well. Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the alt rec reads the same for number 1, same for number 2. But 2A reads, with the addition of following condition on the delegation for existing licenses and licences shown in the attachment, and continues down to Part B. My main change under negotiation with officers today and Ms Hawkins, that we replace the figure of $1 million with a figure of $750 for each occasion it appears under new contracts, page 23 of contract 1, and contract variation and extension, page 24 of attachment 1.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, you're seconding that? Yep. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that. All those in favour? That is not unanimous. That is carried with Councillor Ree voting against. Yes, is that right? Yep. That takes us to item 14, motions of which previous notice has been given. Item 14.1, notice of motion, Councillor Felicity Farrelly, JDAP presentations. Your motion, Councillor? You just read that out.
Yes, I've just lost it, so I'll read it from here. There, that the Mayor writes, that's already, so the rights to presiding member of the Metro Inner North Joint Development Assessment Panel requesting that the order of deputations and presentations at the next JDAP meeting for the Karrinyup West residential development be changed to allow the community and other external parties to make presentations following the applicant's presentation. The reason for it is given below, and I think...
Yep, that's fine. So, seconder, Councillor Caddy. Is there anyone opposed? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.2, notice of motion, Councillor Elizabeth Ree, sharing resources with regional councils. Your motion. Microphone.
Corporate Services prepares a report for the Community and Resource Committee meeting to be held 24th of August 2021 with regard to the potential of the City of Stirling sharing resources with regional councils such as Moora or York. It's a potential that also with the cyclone, maybe we should look at maybe sharing with one of the cyclone affected local governments, but up to the report of the staff.
Sure. Is there a seconder for this motion?
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Councillor Farrelly?
Yeah.
Is there anyone opposed? A question? I'll allow a question. And with your indulgence, could I just ask for some clarification? I'm a bit unsure of what this means. So, would Councillor Reid, could you just explain what resources you're talking about? Is there just what the intent of the motion is?
Previously, councils such as the City of Canning shared their resources with councils such as the Shire of Narrajaraku and the Shire of Sandstone, and what they shared was the planning, the health, the building. Some of these regional councils can't afford a full staff member, so by sharing their resources with a city one, if they get one building application for a year, it doesn't warrant them having a whole building inspector. So, but if they get a building application or a planning one and they can share the resources with a council from the city, it makes it cheaper for them and it makes it easier for us. One of the things the new Minister Carey said
But
that...
that's enough. I just want a clarification. There's no one opposed. Councillor Caddy, your question?
Yes, this specifically says regional councils. TPRC and Mindari are both regional councils. Can they be covered by this same motion?
I would say they're very separate to the intent of this motion.
You can
But
change it to
I would
country.
like to see them included in this because I think that it's relevant that there is potential cost savings there as well.
Mayor, I'll leave it up to the staff to interpret that when they write the report.
Okay, well, just, yeah.
The intent was country, but
pretty
I
open-ended
take on
report.
board that comment, but if we leave it up to the staff for the intent.
Sure. Question, Councillor Boothman?
Yes, well, I mean, just regarding the calling them regional councils, I believe Moora and York aren't regional, they're rural or country shire councils.
And that's the intent. So, look, I think we could even just take the word regional out.
Well,
How about non-metropolitan? But, yeah, or regional, rural.
Can we put rural and regional?
I think it's also understanding that this is only asking for a report, and everyone understands what the intent is. Yep. Councillor Migdale, your question?
Rather than a question, Mr. Mayor, it's about the intention of the report that's prepared by officers. So on one hand, we have as...
This isn't on debate though, so...
No, I understand that, but with TPRC and MRC, whilst they may be regional councils, the intent would be very different to the intent of rural, as Councillor Boothman has stated.
I think everyone's clear on that, Councillor, and the officers are aware of that, so the report can probably indicate that they're very different and show that.
Is it possible to cover both off in the one report, at least?
Yes.
For reference?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
one would
separate.
certainly be beneficial to residents of the city.
We're muting you. I missed all that, sorry. You were going quiet. Are you happy with that?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. You have to speak closely to your mic.
I'm speaking close to the mic. Can you
There.
hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if they would be kind enough to offer both, that would be great. Then I could support.
Yes, that's the intent.
To be prepared. Okay.
All right. So I will put that. There's no one opposed, but I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please. That is 4. We have Councillor Spagnolo, Thornton, Caddy, Farrelly, Proud, Ree, Perkoff, Migdale and Boothman. And against we have Councillor Sargent, Hatton, Lagan, Sandri, Ferranti and myself. That motion is carried, I believe. Yep, that motion is carried. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, would you like to submit any notice of motions?
My second one?
Sorry. What have I missed? Apologies. Councillor Ree, item 14.3, notice of motion, Forum for Sporting and Community Leases. Your motion.
I know, I'm easily forgotten. The council approves...
No, I wouldn't say that, Councillor Ree.
A council approves a forum for club and premises lessees to allow the City of Stirling premises users to understand their obligations under the terms of the lease agreement and to answer any question and address any anomalies that may arise.
Thank you. And second, Councillor Proud. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. 15, notice of motion. Councillors, would you like to submit any notice of motions for the next meeting? Not easily forgotten, Councillor Ree. Over to you.
Thank you very much. The invitation to parliamentarians. A policy be compiled and presented to the Community and Resource Committee meeting to be held 24th of August 2021 with regard to invitations to parliamentarians whose electorates are within the City of Stirling, the policy to include such items as all parliamentarians whose electorates are within the City of Stirling municipality are to be invited to all major events such as citizenship, limited of maximum 3 parliamentarians per political party per event, If the parliamentarians cannot attend, then it is not transferable to staff, family or friends. And the definition of a parliamentarian is those elected to WA state or federal government.
Thank you. Is there any other notice of motions?
And my second one,
Yep.
please.
Yeah.
My second one, just for you, Mr Mayor, is a report be prepared for the Community and Resource Meeting of the 24th of August 2021 regarding the City of Stirling promoting and making available receptacles for the disposal of incontinence products in male public toilet facilities, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. I have a motion. I don't understand.
Sorry.
That a report be provided to council about the diversification of play equipment at Macaulay Park in Inglewood, and the reason being is I haven't had a response from my last notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not up for debate, Mr Littleton. Is there any other indication? If not, I will go to item 16, questions by members of which due notice has been given. 17, new business of an urgent nature. I have nil. Item 18, matters behind closed doors. I have nil.
Mr Mayor, I'm wondering if we could go behind closed doors. There is a matter that I'd like to raise with the council and your good self, with your indulgence, at the appropriate time, if it's now. It relates to, just so that I can give you the heads up, it actually relates to...
There is no item on the agenda.
No,
so
I realise that.
It would have been nice to have a heads up.
Well, it only came to mind, Mr Mayor. I do apologise. Perhaps I could give you some notice next time. It relates to an internal confidential memorandum that I'd like some clarification on.
Is it something that can be taken offline? Does it?
Yes, but the members, there are members of property committees, SPAGs and so on that are present, so it would actually be appropriate to raise at this
How
forum.
about, there's no agenda item, so I'm happy if we close the meeting and we can have a discussion.
Okay.
That would be an easier way to do it.
All right.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
So that brings us to item 19, which is closure. I now declare the meeting closed at 8:57 p.m. Thank you.